Hello, my name is Sarai Palmlöv and I'm one of the many teachers here at Hermods in English. And now we come to the part where I think that most of you sigh. You find it a little bit challenging. Perhaps you dread using formal English because you don't really know what it is. But for English 6 and especially English 7, it's good if you try to apply this technique to improve your language, your written language, and also your spoken language, because this could be the difference between having a C and an A. So please have a look. Why is it helpful, formal English? First of all, it helps you to vary your texts, and then it becomes much nicer to read. And secondly, linking words will actually help and guide your reader as he or she is reading the text. So what is formal style? You know, the picture here shows you most certainly know the tenses, the subjects, the participles and everything. But when you are using formal style, you are using passive voice, impersonal constructions. What is that? Well, that means that you don't say, I think that. Instead, you can say, it is argued that. It is a common belief that. All of a sudden, it sounds like anybody could have that opinion. And you could use a range of advanced vocabulary. For instance, a heated debate concerning the controversial issue is one way of saying that they argue a lot about a question here. And then we have the linking words that I will show you later on, and that's furthermore, however, firstly, secondly, helping the reader and will enable you to make good paragraphs as well. Then we have complex sentences with a variety of links, dependent clauses. Oh, now it sounded difficult, but I'll show you later. And then we have inversion. That means that you swap the sentences. Were this true, we would. Never has been more obvious. The passive and active voice is good to use. It's actually a requirement in academic essays. So it's good to practice it here when you're still studying high school English. Impersonal expressions. Here are some examples of how you can avoid being personal, because please avoid using any references to yourself apart from at the very end, as I mentioned in the analysis part where I presented how you should write your essays, your analysis. Instead of writing, I think, I feel, I believed, I'm convinced, I dislike, you could refer to the evidence and say, from examining the findings or in light of the evidence from previous research, and as it says, the literature suggests, given this information. And when you're analyzing literature, you could say, well, it's evident that Mr. Sparks has this opinion or acts like this. According to Miss Jane, it seems like she's portraying blah, blah, blah. You could also use the third person or it constructions. It could be argued, it can be seen, it was found that, it seems like, it is doubtful that. Very nicely put. Here you present your opinions, but you hide them well. And then we have the passive tense. That means that you swap the sentences. It has been suggested that, instead of saying, this has been suggested. You turn the phrase. Do you realize what you're doing? I'll take a very simple example. Mr. Erickson has bought a new car. That is an active sentence. If you would like to turn it into a passive tense where you would like to focus on the car, instead you say, this blue car has been bought by Mr. Erickson, because Mr. Erickson in this case is not really interesting. The car is interesting. So by swapping the sentences like this, you can bring forward and pinpoint something else in your sentence. So you can say, it appears that, it is generally agreed that it seems like. So that is really good. So how can you apply this when you write? Well, we can have a look and to see how this particular student has created atmosphere and flow and interest for the way she writes. She says, these two major themes in the poem are enhanced by passive tense, by the writer's use of symbolism. And she refers to Byzantium as mentioned before, and she comes into this sort of ideal land comparable to the scriptural heaven. This is obviously, she says, another symbol, and she has found there is a reference to a bird in each stanza, but perhaps the best indicator. Then she's conveying her idea, but she's hiding it under these fantastic small words, the way she's describing it. And she says, similarly through, therefore, it achieves immortality. And finally, she says, and now we understand as readers, okay, we are reaching the end. I would really, really like you to download the PDF for the PPP so you can have a look at it more thoroughly. It's much, much easier that way. In the next film, I will show you linking words, because those are important to use, and probably you have been doing that for many years, but now we will look more into depth on them.